Right, so we're on our Rover 45 1.4 wire reg green 45, and we're in the middle of a cam belt job, and basically we're changing that because the cam belt's become sort of old, not in mileage but in age, so it's due for a change. And if you'd like to see a video on a cam belt, we've got one of those, but the video today is going to be about changing the oil pump on the K-Series 45. The oil pump is just down there where the crankshaft comes through, and normally you'd have the pulleys on there, one for the cam belt and then one that drives your alternator and power steering. And of course, if you were doing this job, you'd have to be removing the cam belt and all that job that's involved in that first. That's why at the beginning I said it's worth looking at that video, because if you were changing the oil pump, then technically that job would be involved within this job. But because we've already done that, I thought I'd start at the stage where we're about to remove the oil pump. The reason we are removing the oil pump, what I'll do is I'll just come down from underneath the engine to show you this. Right, so we're now down underneath the car looking through the wheel arch, and the oil pump is the part that's unpainted, and we've got the new part, so we'll show that in a minute. But the reason we're changing the oil pump is because what happens is that the cam belt cover that goes over all this, one of its fixing points is right there, and as you can see that's broken away. What happened was the bolt snapped off, and we tried to use an easy out to get that out, and the casing, it's so seized in there, was broke away, and we think really that did sort of snap away a little bit easier than we think it should have done as well, because we're being as gentle as you can. So we don't know whether there is any further damage now to the casing, so we don't want to risk leaving that there and finding we get future problems, because once you've got all the cam belt back, you more or less have to do the whole job again. So we decided to change the oil pump. So that's why we're doing it, not because of an oil pressure problem or a pump problem, because that has snapped away that bit of casing there, so hopefully you can see that there. So that's why we're changing it. It's a series of bolts that we'll be undoing, and I'll show you us undoing those. There is one little bolt just there that's different to the rest, so we have to make a note of that. And what we're doing is a good chance to paint this side of the engine, and then once we get the pump out, then the new one will go back nicely in that space. What we do, we'll come up now and have a look at the new pump and the bits we've got to go with it. Right, so here's the oil pump we've got. We looked around and found this one on eBay, and checked with the seller that it should fit our vehicle, though as far as we know there won't be any differences in this oil pump for that type of K-series engine, whether it's the 1.4 like ours, the 1.6 or the 1.8. That's you looking at the pump as we see it on the engine, so I thought I'd show that side first. Then if I turn it round, this is the side that mounts onto the engine. So luckily enough, in some ways it's not a pump inside the engine, but if it was, then the problem we've had probably wouldn't be an issue. So it does come with the rubber seal. What we found it didn't come with was the gasket, so we've had to order that separately. It does seem to be you know, not a gasket you could make up yourself, and we wanted to get the proper gasket, because again, if this leaks, it could be a loss of oil pressure, a mess. But again, you've also got to do the whole job again, the cam belt and everything. So we got the proper gasket. It does appear to seem, I've had a look around, that most of these pumps seem to be sold without that gasket. What we also did was ordered a new seal. That's that seal there, but this seal kit comes with a little rubber protector, which you'll see a little bit more, that goes over the crankshaft sort of drive that comes through this pump. And what that does is that goes over that piece of the crankshaft to protect the seal. So we thought it was well worth having a spare seal, but also having that protector so the seal wasn't damaged. So there, all the bits we've got, and now it'll be time to start the job by starting to remove that pump. And as I said at the beginning of this video, if you want to see how to get the engine to that stage to remove the oil pump, we've got a cam belt video, and that would show us removing everything down. And then at the point we're ready to put the cam belt back is the point that we're then removing this oil pump and covering that as a separate little video. Right, so we're back up the top and ready to start removing the oil pump. As always, we're using the Haynes manual. We've also got the Rover factory disc as well, which we normally only refer to if there's something we're not fully clear on, or we feel the Haynes isn't giving us enough detail we want to check. So, but generally we just use the Haynes manual for all the sort of torque settings and specifications. That's why I don't go over them in these videos, because they are in those manuals for you to look up.
These bolts are jamming in the corrosion in the body. Not good.
Right, so we've just been, hopefully you see that just a minute ago, we're starting to remove some of the bolts. But what we're doing first is removing these two little bolts there. You can see the loom has just dropped down, so those two little eyelets would normally go over those bolt holes. But already, again, the one there snapped off again, which is doesn't always happen. So that's two of the bolts have seem to have corroded in, so we're hoping that the bolts actually holding the pump on won't have them sort of failures. So that's now that loom removed away, and of course when the new pump goes on, that won't be a problem, because that bolt hole is in the into the pump. All we'll have to do is hopefully find in our spare bolts a bolt that will fit a bit like the one for the cam cover as well. Right, so hopefully you can see there, that's the difference. It's a lot shorter than the other bolts that hold the pump in. And what we're doing, as we always do, is we're putting all the bolts in a little magnetic tray so that we don't lose them, hopefully. We know they're all together, and that magnetic tray is what's covering the bolts for this oil pump, because as you know, we're doing lots of other little jobs on this car, like changing the cam belt and the radiator and some other bits. So that's how we're keeping those bolts separate, and we know where they are. So we're on that bolt that seems a little bit more tougher than the others. We've managed to just about get the ratchet on with that bracket there, because we don't really want to have to remove that bracket, because it's all attached to the air conditioning pump and everything else. So if we can get this bolt out that way, hopefully that helps. We put a little bit of penetrating fluid on it as well, and left that soak while we're doing the other bolts. And whether that really got in, we're not sure, but we think it was worth doing to give it a little bit more chance to soak in, and may aid it to come out. But it is very close to the other two bolts that have broken off, so we reckon somehow more corrosion has got into those, whether water's got in or a water pump leaked in its history, because it seems to be the ones that side are the problem. But at least it looks like it's starting to come out now. Right, so we've now got all the bolts off, and it's time to see if it will just gently come away.
The oil. I would think this is only from the pump. Well, that's a lot of it.
Right, so it looks like we've broke the seal now, because as we've tapped it away, oil is starting to come out. And we're hoping not lots of oil comes out, because it should be above the level of the oil in the sump. So we're assuming it's just oil that's in the pump and around, but we are going to have to put something down just to catch what does come out by the looks of it.
That just shows how easy that pump's going to leak. That was only a slight crack away, that wasn't all. That's exposing it. What I mustn't do is leave on the engine surfaces.
Right, that's it away. So with a little gentle tap and leaving it has slowly come away, a little bit stiff and tight at first, but it has steadily come away, not too much oil has come out. So that is the pump away, and that's how it's looking with the pump away, and the gaskets come away with the pump by the looks of things as well. Right, so we've got a little wipe over and clean, and hopefully you can just about see the little flat there that drives the oil pump, and there's one at the bottom as well, and you can see there some of the ports where the oil comes through into the pump and back out again. Right, so there's the back side of the pump, and you can see the bolt holes around that were holding the pump on, and luckily none of them did seize in, and even the one that was a little bit tight did eventually come out. So the only bolts we had problems are ones that were in this pump, so with new bolts they're going to the new pump and won't cause us any issue, and were kind of the reason for changing it in the first place. The gasket that come off does appear to have this like line drawn around it, which doesn't appear to be any sort of real rubber seal, more of a drawing on it, because the gasket we've got in the pictures it showed it looking like this, but it doesn't actually have these lines almost drawn on it. But it does look like the right sort of gasket, because it's quite sort of thick, almost metallised gasket, and it looks like that's what's on this one. So it does look like it is the right gasket. They've sent us. You can see the oil paths and the pressure spring just in there. I think it's a job to really see that on this camera, but it is in there, just about visible. Oh yeah, just about visible there. And you can see here where the crankshaft drive goes through, and those two flats line up with these flats here to actually turn the oil pump, and it is like a gear kind of pump in there to build the pressure up. You can't actually see any of it, is sealed inside there. And then if you just turn it around that way, watch too much oil don't come out.
You can see where the thin web is, where the short bolt goes.
Oh yeah, you can see how it looked in the car, and you can also get a better look there where that initial bolt had broke the casing and is completely seized in there, but it doesn't look like it goes all the way through at all. But we still didn't want to risk using the pump where the casing, being this is oil pressure and the pressure that keeps the car, the engine from seizing. We didn't really want to risk any problems with oil and oil pressure with this pump, or potential leaks through the casing in the future. And there's the other bolt, and that was purely to hold the bracket on for that loom. That's where that one had seized in as well. So yeah, we'll just have a little look at the old pump before we fit the new one. So there's the gasket off, and it was dry both sides, so it appears that no jointing was ever really used on that. And there you can see the pump without the gasket on. Yeah, so we've just been looking this pump over, and what's interesting is where the bolts for that loom went in. This look at the backside, they are hanging down, so you could get a little bit of oil sprayed into those if you're having a slight problem, although that one had completely seized in. And we just thought we'd cover, when we were leaving it after we tapped it, we weren't obviously getting a screwdriver in onto this surface, because you could damage the engine side, and this does need to be completely smooth. We were levering on these little bits here that were hanging down, which are those bolts, and also we leave a little bit from the top just onto this bolt here, so we weren't actually damaging any of the surface, and we also didn't want to damage this old pump unnecessarily. But the biggest problem is damaging the face on the engine side, so I just thought I'd cover that as well while we were looking over it. Right, so as you see there, we're cleaning off all the bolts, and what we do is make sure that surface is definitely clean and any of the paint hasn't got onto that surface, and maybe we'll even put a little tap into the fridge just to make sure they're fully clean as well, all part of our cleaning up process that we're doing at the moment. Well, so as part of our clearing up, we've noticed that the loom that actually bolts onto the bottom of the oil pump, the tape's starting to just sort of come off. So what we're going to do is put some tape, well, cut off the bits of access, we've already done that, and just put a new little bit of insulation tape round that, while it's sort of in an easy position to do that. Right, so we're going to use the taps now to just run gently in through the bolt holes there, just to make sure that there's no dirt in there, and the bolt's going to go in nice and easily. It actually even recommends this in the manual to do this. So we'll do each bolt hole on the pump all the way around. Right, so it's quite surprising, there is actually quite a bit of dirt that's coming out of those threads, so we'll get that cleaned off and do the rest of them. Right, so we've now tapped those threads out, so we're just giving a final clean and making sure there's no paint that could affect it, and we'll give it a good wipe over and just make sure it's as clean as it possibly can be. Right, so we've got to prime the pump now, so what we decided to do is put a little bit of Lucas oil in, which is what we always put in whenever we do an oil change on our cars, just to give that oil a little bit more likelihood of clinging to the gears in the pump, because although we can sort of prime it and get the oil in it, when you turn it up on its side, any big volume of oil is just going to run back out, so we're hoping that will hold the oil in the gears to help it to initially prime. So we're just going to mix in a little bit of that that oil, so we've put a bit of that in with some normal engine oil, mix that in, hopefully that'll just give it that extra chance of clinging to the gears, and hopefully we kind of look at it that if the car sits there long enough, they're still able to prime the oil up normally, so that will kind of be that scenario when it first comes on. We just have to see. So we're now going to try and get as much of that oil in there, get the gears turned, so it's got as best chance as possible of getting the oil round and oil pressure built up. Of course, as I showed you at the beginning, we've got the gasket that we've bought, and of course we've got that little protective piece of rubber to put over the end of the sort of drive whilst we get the pump on. Then of course you take that rubber end back off, so that's the gasket. Right, so now we've got the gasket out of its packet. I'll just put that there on the pump, and we've now got that little rubber protector that will hopefully protect the seals we put the pump on out, and we think that was worth buying that extra seal just to get that. And of course this is something we can keep, so that if we ever have to do it again, we'll have that there as well. And of course we'll have hopefully a spare seal in a packet as well. Right, so now we're ready to get the oil pump out and hopefully get that oil in, which will help it prime when it... Right, so there's a nice close-up of the back of the pump that go onto the engine, and hopefully hopefully you can see there, you've got those flats there that align up with that drive so the pump can be turned. Right, so here's the old pump and the new pump together. And we're just having a little look at the sort of numbering on it, and we were looking there and seeing that's likely to be the date, so we think that's probably made in 21. And if we come over to the old pump, it's a 00, which is 2000, which is probably about right because it's a 2001 registered car, so that tells us that the pump hasn't been changed before, probably, although we didn't expect that to be the case. But I thought it was just nice to have a close look at the new one and the old one as well. And of course you can now see that's the bolt that got seized in there where it broke, and there it is on the new one, which actually is quite a nice and strong looking sort of casting. So I think we are glad we did change it. Hopefully if it all works out we will be anyway. And of course this was where that bolt that held on the loom broke in, and of course you can then see that there as well. So now we're ready to start priming the pump. Alright, so what we're going to do is, as I said, we'd mix that oil up in the cup, and we're just going to try and pour the oil into the ports in the pump, hopefully steadily turn it a little bit so that the oil will work into the gears as well, and hope there'll be enough oil to allow it to prime. Right, so we put a little bit more oil in the holes, and as you can see we're just turning it gently, and hopefully that will all work round inside the pump.
I've taken that in from that one.
Yeah, so you can see it's taken some of the oil in through that hole there. Do a little bit more of a turn and see if it'll take any more oil in. Right, so we've been adding the oil in, no more has gone down. We've been turning it round, so we're just going to pour out that access now, and hopefully we have to put it on, because it does say that the gasket should go on as dry, well, dry, but it's going to be as dry as possible. So we've tipped out any excess oil, and technically that's how it was when it came out. It didn't actually pour out with oil, so it must be able to prime itself from that, from what we can tell. So we'll get on and just make sure that we think there's enough oil in there and it is primed as much as we can do it. Right, so although it says the seal should be dry, what we've done is just put a little bit of oil on those edges there, and just a little bit there to hopefully ease it in, but just a very small smearing of oil. And we've also put a little bit in the pressure relief spring there as well. Right, so that's the new pump with the new gasket on, and we'll just put a little bit of oil in that black plastic shield as well, which we're going to put on now, so that the end of the crankshaft. Yes, hopefully you can see there the end of the crankshaft is covered, so that as we put the pump on there's no risk of you catching the end of that on the rubber seal there in the pump and doing any damage. So we think that was worth getting for that, and as I say, we can keep that and use that if we ever need to as well.
Something different. Ah, look at that.
That's it, and it's gone on. So as you can see, it is a case of lining up the pump with the crankshaft drive with those two flats. So had a couple of attempts at just moving it round very slightly and putting it back on, and that's why we think, you know, that rubber protector you can see is so important, because that really did protect the seal. If we hadn't have had that, I think it would have been very, very difficult to not damage that seal. So it's definitely worth getting that. And what we're doing now is slowly get the bolts into place, and then slowly do them up. Right, so what we're also doing is just putting a little bit of Loctite on those bolts when they're going in. There's a small amount of that, and then we'll slowly put them all in hand tight before we do them up completely tightly. And of course we'll leave that little rubber seal protector on for the time being. Right, so there's the little short one going in, and that's the short bolt, and then we'll be ready to start tightening up. They're all just hand tight and make sure the pump's sitting there in position at the moment, and of course they've all got Loctite on them. Right, so there's the torque wrench, and we've now torqued them up, and we've torqued them up to the specifications in the Haynes manual, and we are a great believer in following through with the manual, even if it's a job you've done before, to check the procedures and to get all the torque settings and any information or specialist information that you might need to follow as a procedure. We're going to leave that little rubber protector on for the time being, and probably remove that at the next stage of fitting the cam belt back. So at this point we're going to stop here, because we're now going to start the process of fitting the water pump and putting everything back for the cam belt, which is in another video we've already done, so you can always look that up. And then we'll finish this video off by checking that there is oil pressure and making sure the pump primes once everything else is back together. Right, so we've now got all the cam cover back on and all the mounting points back on for the engine, and what we're doing is draining out the old oil, because we want new oil in it when we first try and get or check the oil pressure is going to be reached with the new pump. Right, so we're just going to put the new oil in now, and once that's in and we've got the right level, then we're be ready to turn the engine over without the spark plugs to see if we are getting oil pressure. Right, so we took the spark plugs out so the engine will turn over easily. We've added the new oil and the oil filter, and the oil plug is done up on the sump plug. So now what we're going to do is try turning it over. Plugs are out so the engine can't start, see if we can get oil pressure in the pump primes. Right, so we're now ready to turn the engine over. As I said, the spark plugs are out, so turn over easy and can't start. What we're going to do is see how long it takes for the oil pressure to build. Obviously, eventually it's got to, and then once it does and that all goes off, we'll see how long it takes to come back on as well. Hopefully no damage can be done, because the engine's not going to be started and it's got or had good oil in it, and we always use the Lucas treatment, and we've put new oil in it as well, so the pump gets new oil. So we'll start turning over. Right, you ready to turn it over yet? Hey? Ready? Yeah, keep going. Oil light's still on. Oil light's still on. The oil light is still on. Go a bit more. Right, go then. It's gone out. Yeah.
Good. Still out?
Yeah, still out. Still out. Come back on now.
Right, that means we've got oil pressure, I would think. Right, just try it once more.
Gone out. Right, still out. Still out. Back on.
Right, that means we've got oil pressure.
Right, so hopefully as you see there, it took a little bit of time because the oil filter had to be filled and it had to prime and get the oil round. But as you see, the oil light went off, and the good thing is it stayed off, and then we did it again and checked it stayed off. So hopefully now we can put, well, we'll be putting a new set of plugs in because we're doing a full service on the car at the moment, and then it'll be a case of starting it, and what I'll do, I'll end the video with starting it and the car running. But that's certainly a good sign that we got oil pressure and the pressure held, and it did it at least twice before we started the engine, because we wouldn't have wanted to start the engine and see if it primed. So that's certainly a good sign. Yeah, all clear? Right, so that's the engine all running after we've changed the oil pump. The oil light went out as quick as if it was a normal start, and everything looking fine. If we look down there, we're not seeing any traces of oil. Of course, this is the car that we changed the radiator on as well, and full service and a cam belt, and of course that oil pump was something we didn't plan to change, but as you see in the video, the reasons why we did. So that is the end of our oil pump change video. As always, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to check out our other videos and look through the collection we've got.